Welcome to all of you who are here in person today, and those of you who are joining via Zoom. We couldn't be more excited than to share this extraordinary property that DEDM has been selling now for a couple of years, and to introduce our illustrious panel of guests and professionals. And want to thank Pontiac Land Group and Hines, the developers of this property. Jean-Callahan is the architect, and Thierry Despont, the designer. So for those of you who have not had an opportunity to visit this extraordinary building, we really urge and recommend that you do, because we've been very successful and would love you all to be part of our success. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our participants in today's panel discussion, because I'd like it to be more of a discussion than a Q&A. And later in the program, I believe that Adrian and members of our DEDM team will be taking questions that the audience may have, and we will try to get through a couple of them later in the conversation. So to my left is Joe Nahum of Fox Nahum, who is the extraordinary design firm and designer who designed this Penthouse 76, which was selected by El Decor to be the El Decor Penthouse. Woo! And we are privileged to have Joe talk about this property, but also about his passion for design. We all know that when you're passionate about something, as many of us real estate professionals are, that's when you do your best work. So I would love to dig in a little bit deeper about that and how you got into the business. Second to my left, number second, is Frederick Eklund Gomes of the mega team at DEDM and probably the country, if not the world. We're excited to hear from Frederick. I'm sure you have a lot to say about design, not just in New York, our big apple, but all over the country, and probably a little bit about Sweden, perhaps?
Maybe.
And Tracy TUDOR. I miss you, my friend, my colleague in Beverly Hills. We are thrilled to have you with us this afternoon.
I wish I could be there live. It'd be so fun.
I know. Well, we do rain checks in New York City, even though it never rains in California. And Norma Jean-Callahan, right out of Miami Beach. It looks like you're on the water, actually. And I think at the shore. And I think you're probably at the Shore Club.
She's in the Shore Club primary bathroom, it looks
Beautiful.
like.
I'm sitting in the bathroom. That's what I do.
Okay, so today, as I said, is really more conversational. No specific questions. I may guide you and think of some things that I know about you and the properties that you represent. But Joe, I'd love to start with you. And again, your firm has done such notable projects, and to the extent that you wish to share some of your celebrity clients, I know that's very exciting always for our audience. So I know you're from New York City, just like I am. And so tell me how you got into the business.
That's probably a long, boring story. So I'm going to get into it.
But you could go decades.
I've had my own company since, with my late partner, Tom, Tom Fox of Fox Nahum, since I was 22. So I've been around for a while, and I was born and raised here, and I was just lucky enough to kind of fall into design when I met Tom a long time ago. And yeah, I've been here ever since. But you know, like most designers who are fortunate enough to work on these kind of projects, you know, we also get to work in Miami and, you know, Beverly Hills, kind of the nice spots, Aspen, Martha's Vineyard, mostly domestic though, not foreign. And I was very honored that El Decor chose me or us to do this project, and it was a great team, everybody involved. I can't take responsibility for everything. Everybody here was so helpful, and having this space, as I said to you earlier, like this place could have had IKEA furniture and it would have been gorgeous. It's really a beautiful space and so unique. So we're very fortunate to, and I'm also very honored to be on this panel, and thank you for considering me.
Thank you. We representing this property, we're really honored also that El Decor selected this property to be featured this year. So, Frederick.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, what inspires you in terms of design for your own personal lifestyle? And I know you've lived and live in several different places.
I
So
move
guess
around a lot.
You move around a lot, but there has to be something special in each of your homes that drives you, that fulfills your daily life, creates passion moments, a place where you are comfortable with your children. I mean, design is about looking good, but it's also about how you feel around it. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I'm obsessed with traveling. I feel the most fulfilled and happy when I'm on an airplane, on an airport. There's a meme on Instagram with this guy dancing. He's in a bad mood. I don't know if anyone's seen it. And when he gets to the airport, he gets happy. That's me, basically. No, I'm a hotel snob, so I travel, and the joy is planning the trip more than actually maybe staying at these hotels and discovering, these new designers sometimes around the world. And I get a lot of my inspiration in those. We're so lucky that what we do, because we have sold a lot of new development, right? And we are out there in the general real estate with the resales, and we get constantly feedback from what works or not working with our clients and what buyers are looking for. And then we take all that information paired with some luxury travel, and then our job really is to be trend forecasters, right? Because these buildings are planned years in ahead, and what is trending now, what did trend, and where are we going with all of it. And then sometimes, not so much with this building, but other buildings, we get to pick the designers and the architect and program the building, and then we sit in the meetings and they present to us, actually, like we're almost like a tastemaker, and we react to what they present, and we sort of give them the direction on the layouts and the finishes, and then in the end.
But you look at the palette that they present in front of you, but as you said, you have a lot of input, and in some cases, in many cases actually, having worked together now for 13 years, we've worked on many new developments. So let's talk about 40 Bleecker, for example. Tell us experience selecting the designer there, and how it was different, and how it really transcended the NoHo location, and how it's still one of the top buildings today.
We did very well with there. We did, it's interesting you ask about that building, because 40 Bleecker, if you know NoHo, it was sort of the last site that could be built there, and there's a height restriction, and it's a very historic, Basquiat and Warhol and all that energy north of Soho, where everybody wants to be. The kids these days, the cool kids, they want to be there, not even Soho, so that is like that location. But anyway, we did something quite uptown, like a lot of stone, and it's quite held back, and the millwork, it feels very almost Park Avenue with a downtown twist. And we're actually doing another building now where it's really cool, we're doing a downtown building uptown. I don't think anyone's done that before. But to your point, with that building at the time, now this is a few years ago, we really saw that there were buyers up here, or Upper East, Upper West, that for the first time were thinking, maybe playing around with the thought of going downtown. Not fully downtown as in like Tribeca or Financial District, but kind of like right there. And if you look at Park Avenue, kind of, Broadway intersects right there. And we had a lot of those big whales and big, very wealthy people that actually bought in 40 Bleecker, and we got over $4,000 a foot on the...
But it was Ryan Corbett.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Ryan Corbett, yeah, Anna Wintour's darling, and
the fashion industry.
Balenciaga, etc., yeah. Yes, but just to answer the private homes, I think maximalism maybe is trending away. That was certainly my home in LA. And we're not back to minimalism either. I mean, you could probably agree, because we're somewhere in between, which is a fun space to be. It's like experimental, and it feels fresh. But I think everything has to be a bit layered today. And that's what we try to talk about in these meetings. How do you, because new development is different from one apartment. What we do is to not dumb it down sometimes, but we have to make it a little more general when we design a whole building. Exactly. And what you get to do when you do one apartment is like you can take more risks, and it should be more specific. It should be more, press-worthy and fun and colors. So there's a blend there.
All right. As you said, I mean, design is so intimate and so personal, so that when you get to work with an individual client, you can really dig in and really understand how they live on a daily basis. So Tracy, you're known as, we're very fortunate, Douglas Elliman, to call Tracy one of the OGs, one of the originals, joining Douglas Elliman in California. And we've become friends over the years, and I've seen a couple of your lovely homes. So not only do you sell them, but you live in them, and you are a style personified person. As it is, everyone follows you. And we had the fortunate opportunity to work together at West Hollywood Edition, which was a huge success. And what's happening in LA, since I haven't been there in a while, in terms of design and how you see it, and what's, you know, sort of driving you these days?
Thanks for having me, Susan, of course. I agree with Frederick in terms of, like, we're edging away from like the whole like powerful maximalist moment, but we're not quite at the minimalist piece either. I think there's like a happy go between with sort of the layering and the neutrals, so that from a resale standpoint, I think it speaks to a larger audience, even in the super ultra luxury market. You know, we're looking for buyer profiles north of 20, north of $30 million. Just because you have money doesn't mean you have taste. and what
right
I, you know, what I've found and what is trending now, and what I think is going to be around for a while, as he was saying, is the idea of different shapes as well, but also, you know, different textures, different stones, all the while kind of leaning into a palette that's agreeable to a larger community, right? Like my old house as well in Brentwood was, I mean, I had lacquered green walls and blacks and color everywhere, and a lot of like vintage Italian antiques from the 70s. And now I want a little bit of peace and quiet and serenity when I come into a home. And I tend to be attracted to that in the high end here. So when I walk into a home and I see quality construction, walk into the addition, for example, and, you know, having the ability to like see John Pawson's work that in its finest form, you know, it's timeless. There isn't elements to the design that you look at in 5 years from now and go, well, that won't make sense anymore. And
You touched upon something, Tracy, that it's interesting, because in my career, which has been lengthy, probably longer than yours, Joe, but I sold a lot of pre-war apartments, and I think that your design changes as your life changes,
Yes.
as your children grow up and move out of the house. So I remember selling this beautiful big apartment at 970 Park Avenue, and I was thinking that the design would be, and this was 25 years ago, and I was thinking that the design would be pre-war. And it was completely minimalist, because the buyer said, I had that home in Connecticut already.
Right.
I had it in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
I want something really where my artwork is going to shine, and where me and my husband are going to shine when we have our friends over to entertain. So they said they had all of those layers. They still have the country house where they can keep the family keepsakes and heirlooms.
Right.
But I do think that your interior design, your homes reflect where you are, and where you are at any given point in your life can change.
Sure.
Which keeps us exciting, I guess. Norma Jean, how is sunny Florida and the success that you, and I know Frederick's part of that team as well, at the Shore Club, which has been reimagined by Robert A.M. Stern. And so talking about, you look at modernism, and on the beach in South Beach, and here you have the Witkoff group who selected Robert Stern and obviously found some special sauce, also with our team, but with the design. So if you could share a little bit about what's going on there, and what has been so appealing for the buyers that are paying record-breaking prices at the Shore Club in South Florida.
Sure, thank you. I think that what Robert M. Stern has done on the beach with Witkoff here is sort of creating a new context for his architecture. So this is the first time he's ever built an oceanfront condominium. And so when you look at him in the context of Central Park West, Central Park South, 520, et cetera, and you feel that sort of Robert M. Stern history, the reinvention of it for the oceanfront condominium is something that people hadn't ever really seen before. And delivering this for a new level of buyer who has migrated down, is making it their second home or quite often their permanent home, just didn't really exist. It had been such a large population of second homes and third homes. And then people decided they needed very large scale, quality, livable architecture in the context of oceanfront. And so what he's done is basically brought his paintbrush down to the ocean and created something like 220 Central Park South, but for a very discerning and savvy owner who wants to spend more than just a couple of days or a couple of weeks of the year in a proper residence.
And to add to that, NJ, it's a New York developer, it's a New York architect, it's a New York construction company, a New York team more or less selling it. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Right.
Like how different markets, different design things work in different markets. But now as all these markets are sort of blending and people are moving around after COVID, that's really worked in Miami for this particular buyer. And we have a lot of New York buyers. And NJ is the queen. I can't take credit for any of it, but 75% sold at $5,500 a foot without a single listing live. It's unbelievable. It's just,
Congrats.
Record
I
up.
want to also expand on what you and Tracy were saying about how you guys are paring back the maximism. And I think that is also informed by how much time we were all spending inside and the feeling maybe you need room and you need to feel like you have space, and organization creates space, and the higher ceilings and the pared back furniture and just that airy, light, roomy feeling is really informing a lot of the interiors now as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we all, well, most of us, thank God, have come out of COVID. We still know it's around, but we do know that COVID definitely affected the way we all live and the way many of our buyers look to purchase apartments and design their homes. So I'd like to ask you, Joe, some of your clients, what changes have you seen as a result of that? We, in the real estate world, we all know that many of our clients have opted for larger spaces for the obvious reasons, but how has that sort of influenced the design of your properties and the clients that you represent?
Well, I think it goes back a little bit more to you saying different people in their different stages of life, and that has a lot to do with it, regardless of COVID or not COVID. But the COVID part, I think, did certainly put people more at home. So they came to, the typical working at home. We need a better environment for working at home. We need, outdoor space is key if we could have it, because again, we're spending more time working from home or being at home. But I also think there's for us, a lot of people who like empty nesters or close to empty nesters, people like you were talking about earlier who we had a client who did an apartment at 740 Park, and it took whatever 2.5 years or 2 years. We were the fastest team ever to get it done. 2 years to do that apartment, and rebuilt a house in the Hamptons for a couple of years, and they moved from there because they wanted to be kind of cool and go downtown because their kids were on the way out, and they moved to the Puck Building. So it's I feel like
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting that somebody could go from the culture of 740 Park to someplace like that, and I feel like we have a lot of clients that now tell us, Joe, we've done all these projects with you and you did a great job, but we want to go to Miami and we want to buy an apartment and we want to move in 3 months. We're not, that's why I think this place is so great. Somebody could let everybody write a check and come tomorrow. And I feel like, for me, you guys know better than I do, but I do think there really is a market for that. People who understood that it's just so much work to do an apartment. I'm kind of talking myself out of business, but you know, I feel like there's people who are just like, I want to just move in. Like, I don't want to spend 5 years or 3 years and go through boards and go through building department and. I
the
feel
work
like there's definitely a
rules,
movement.
especially those parking Fifth Avenue buildings.
Crazy, and what it takes to get it done.
But
so.
co-ops are still good deals for those of you who have co-op listings, so don't want to poo-poo that. But you raise a good question. I would say probably the 80s, the 90s, when new development started, the early 2000s, developers would build a nice product, and the interiors, they worked. They were fine. But we've seen over the past 20 years such a level. The bar has been raised exponentially. Look at where we're sitting today.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of it.
Perfect example of timeless elegance, value, whether or not it's even your taste. The minute you walk in this building, you see it, you feel it.
And you can just move in.
Yeah. So this is what I wanted to ask our 3 esteemed real estate professionals. Years ago, you would say, oh, the developer said, everyone's going to rip everything out anyway. So why am I spending the money? And we're saying because, to your point, Joe, people want the convenience. Yes, they will want to individualize it. But so, Frederick, speak about that, because you've been part of that evolution of nicer finishes, better quality.
I think and you bring up such a good point. We talk about how expensive real estate have become, and everyone's sort of saying it's too expensive, and you know, inflation and interest rates have some stuff to do with that, but it's because the taste, or rather, you know, the quality has been so elevated. Look at new development, and I saw the Ocean report, was it yesterday?
Yes.
So $1,600 was the average contract signed for resales, and $2,500 for new development. That was just last week, and it's a small, you know, section of the market, but that says something. Not to bash, you know, real resellers and resales, but because design has been so elevated the last few decades, and especially like in the last 5 years, and look at, you know, Shore Club, people are willing to pay a lot more, and I think especially after COVID. Well, actually during COVID. People were moving out of these buildings because they didn't want to touch the elevator buttons, and they wanted, you know, gardens. But since then, especially lately, I feel like new development is really back in popularity, specifically, you know, in Florida, where the resale house market is a little softer than the condo market. And I feel in the future now, the few projects we're working on here, because the pipeline isn't so great in New York actually, is going to do extremely well, because people do not, I mean, I'm such a snob, I can't imagine buying an apartment and, you know, doing number 2 on the toilet that somebody else has lived in for 2 years. I want the heated bathroom seats, and I want, like, you know, and when you walk in, you just want this. You want to move in. People understand that it takes twice the time, costs twice the money to renovate. It's a headache. It's like a divorce just trying to...
Especially if they had the experience.
It's a mess. Yeah, my own experience renovating. Never again. Where you can just buy it. And people want to live where, like, they look like an Elle magazine kind of like decor. That's where people want to move.
So Tracy, you have represented many, many high-end sellers and buyers alike, and you were very involved in the pre-development process of working with us and John Pawson and Ian Schrager for West Hollywood Edition. And I know there's not a lot of new development, but you also sell spec houses and the West Hollywood Edition. Tell us what your thoughts are about that, how the buyers are reacting to a more, you know, upgrade, a better type of product.
I think, you know, particularly in the last, you know, few years since COVID, since, you know, labor prices have gone up 30%, the cost of concrete, the cost of steel, the cost of glass, to do a remodel on my own house in LA was, the entire process was 35% more than it was 2 years prior to when I started that process. So when you think about like an educated buyer walking into a house and understanding all of those things, they're like, why am I going to spend that money when I can buy a quality product from a really great spec developer, or, you know, obviously working with someone like a John Pawson or, you know, some of the new projects and product that's coming into Los Angeles. I think that's the difference. I think that's why people are still willing to pay a premium price per foot for product at that level, because they don't want to take the time to do it. I mean, I'm literally building a 500 square foot ADU and I'm a year and a half in. It's insane, the time and the cost to do that. And that's going to cost me close to $800 a foot on a remodel. That's not something that we saw 2 years ago. And most, sophisticated buyers in this market, particularly in LA, understand the gravity of that. So we're seeing a lot of people that were doing custom homes, 10,000, 20,000 square foot houses, put their hands up in the air and say, I'm not doing it. And so all of those are hitting the market. And that's been a really difficult sell for us. But it just goes to show that if you put out good product and, you are a little bit more forward thinking, and you're putting in the higher end finishes, and also just the construction piece of it is so important, particularly at that level, then they're going to be willing to spend that $3,000, $3,500 a foot versus, buying in at $1,500 a foot and then spending 3 years bringing it to that level.
Thank you. And I'm sure your personal experience selling and building your own homes really adds a lot of value to your clients when they're asking you for advice, because you can speak first-handedly, well, this is really what it cost me to do the Brentwood, and this is what it's costing me today for Beverly Hills. So, Norma Jean, without prying too much into the demographic and the buyers who have signed contracts at the Shore Club, needless to say, they are attracted to the value of Robert A.M. Stern. You were on 220 Central Park South. I proudly represented Robert A.M. Stern's first condo on behalf of Related, the Chatham, back in 1998, 181 East 65th. So when you think about it, and Related then hired Robert A.M. Stern for probably 12 projects after that. And now just look at where his firm has, rose to, like beyond none. They really have done a stellar job. But I think it's been interesting to see some of the developers realize that Robert A.M. Stern is a fabulous architect and designer, but that you can pair architecture with interior design, and then it really sings. And so if you could just share a little bit about that and what's going on at the Shore Club in terms of architecture and interior design, that collaboration and how the buyers are responding to it.
Sure. So, this is the first building I've worked on where Robert A.M. Stern has had his hands on every single element of the design process. So he's custom designed pieces like sconces and fixtures. He has informed the design process down to the very details, which are pretty exceptional. Being on the ocean, being anywhere really, one of the things he talks about a lot is how you live in each room and the time of day that you're living in each room. So light is always very important. If you see the image behind me and you can see how light is traveling through this master bathroom, it's very similar through the whole residence. He's used his passion of light and inside the entire building. Very different from, say, contextually being on Central Park South, for instance, at 220, where the light was important, but it was from a northern exposure, and he had to think of light in those rooms completely differently. And something that's really amazing about the demographic here at Shore Club is that it is, I would say, almost identical to the buyer who purchased at 220. There's a level of confidence in knowing what you're going to get. Certainly this developer delivers. He's still delivering it. I think they just traded down at 150 Charles at 11,500 a foot. So when you see New Yorkers who are big fans of a certain developer, they're also big fans of a certain architect. There's a natural migration to this product that maybe some of our competitors nearby didn't get to enjoy because the interior designer might have been too specific or not really that recognizable. So, having Robert A.M. Stern's hands on everything down to the finishes has been something that everyone expected. So when our 220 buyer walks in and says, oh, right, this is the kitchen that I love at 220, but it's been reimagined for a beachfront with a sandier, warmer style and such. I think it's just a matter of trust in product.
So I'll be curious to see how, and I know Frederick, you want to jump in here, how many of these buyers will actually engage Robert Stern to do everything versus their own personal. But go ahead, Frederick.
No, I just want to say with NJ that also he aims to do the floor plans, and obviously, but I think having sold in a lot of those projects in other parts of the country, there's something about Robert A.M. Stern's floor layouts.
Yeah.
And they're so classic, New York, the kitchens and, you know, the foyers and how they open the light, kind of like she said, travel, but specifically for the beach. And when I saw the floor plans the first time and I spoke to Alex Witkoff about it, I was like, these are very large apartments, you know, for that kind of, we're talking about like 20, 30, 40, $50 million residences on 20th Street. It's a risk taking, and obviously it's paid off, and it's the brilliance of that vision. But I really think they are, and I don't say this lightly, the best layouts.
I agree, hands down. I always say it for now 20-something years. Pull out the floor plans for the Chatham, because to your point, proper galleries and the circulation where you can see room to room. All of the bedrooms have at least 3 furnishable walls. Closets in the bedroom, a no-no. It's a little dressing area.
And I love, by the way, Susan is the master of floor plan. Remember at 36 Bleecker, this is like 8 years ago or something, you came over one night, I think it was at John Albino's apartment or somewhere, and I didn't know that about you. I mean, she's, you know, development queen, but she sits there and we for hours change every wall to perfect those floor plans. Floor plans, they're, I mean, it's not design per se, but they are equally important.
Oh, for sure. Even for when you come to furnishing, I'm shocked sometimes about developers not thinking about how do you even cover that window, or where do you even put the sofa or the bed in this room?
It's everything.
It's amazing how often it's neglected.
So, Tracy, I'd like to talk a little bit about Texas. I know that you have some business in Texas, and I imagine several of our colleagues, I hope, are joining us today, so I don't want you to feel left out. We're all excited about Texas, and I know I see some of your Instagrams and some of your properties, so share with us what you think's going on there and how exciting it is.
I mean, I absolutely love Texas. I could see myself with a ranch there one day. So the second Douglas Elliman put a flag there, it was very obvious to me that that was a place that I wanted to be. First, because I'd say about 50 million in business of my clients' money went to Texas that year for a variety of reasons. But also, I think, post-COVID, people wanted more space. People wanted out of Los Angeles for a variety of reasons. And so it was a really good move for me. I'm really enjoying the different markets there. Obviously, I've been in Dallas a little bit longer than I've been in Austin, but I love both equally for different reasons. Dallas is a little more Beverly Hills and Austin's a little more West Hollywood. But I think what's really cool about, some of the design that's happening there right now, because, I wouldn't necessarily call Texas a leader in innovation and design, but the growth that I've seen in the last couple of years, and really just like looking at the amount of the population that's gravitating to the state in and of itself. And then, of course, the developers that are coming in and the influx of money into the state is phenomenal. And, what follows is better design, better architecture. And so I think in, the next 10 years, we're going to start seeing some really incredible forward-thinking architecture and design, specifically in Dallas and in Austin and Houston as well.
Yeah, especially Houston. There's no zoning laws at all, so it's
no. That's a little scary. That's a little scary, but I think
Well,
there are,
unless you acquire a big lot and we all do it together and we all have similar tastes and build a new community, right? Never say never. Okay, I don't have any specific questions, but is there any topic that any of the four of you would wish to discuss? Otherwise, Adrian, have we collected any questions? Okay. You can tell how grand this penthouse is.
Really?
I think in the meantime, we can say something about this building and how it relates to design. Not only this unit, but we talked about the layering and the classic designs and timeless design. And I think this building is a really good marriage of all those things. You know, you have very classic things, like I always talk about. Well, the amenities and the staff is amazing in this building, with like the big, thick doors and the handles, and and it lasts for many lifetimes. But then there's a twist to it, right? Which is, it's all about the twist. And if you look at the bathrooms and the really cool separate sinks and the design of those mirrors, and there's a lot of those elements. It's like the old and the new, and I think that's what we talked about with the minimalism versus maximalism. And it's the perfect sort of balance, little downtown, uptown, and I think it's why it's selling so well.
I couldn't
and
agree
then
with you more.
with your furniture, so.
I also think that it's just unique. And, again, I'm fortunate to have worked in all of these tallest buildings in the world, each and every one of them. And this building is definitely unique in what you were talking about, finishes. Like, you don't see these big, thick doors that are lacquered with amazing
custom
hardware.
homes, you see them.
Yeah, I'm saying in just this kind of a market where you could just move in, and the bathrooms, there it is, and the kitchen, all of that, the floors is very unique, I would say, to this building compared to the others that I've worked in.
Absolutely, and the architecture is such a significant factor, because I recall years ago when you sell in these towers up in the sky that have phenomenal views, some people are afraid.
Yeah.
This has structure, it has solidity, it has everything that someone wants. So when you talk about timeless elegance, this property has it all. You can see the views maximized as any billionaire row property, and I heard a few anecdotes today. This is my favorite. So for those of you who have not brought your customers here, please do. So I'm going to now quickly ask Adrian for her passcode. And we'll try to get to a couple of questions. Does anyone in the audience here have anything? Mark.
Well, one of the things I appreciated as well as all that you talked about was the art. And you selected some unexpected pieces, but they really fit in so beautifully. And that part of the process, I mean, how did you come up with that for this model, this residence? I mean, throughout the residence, it's down.
Well, I'm lucky to have worked with a lot of collectors, so I already had a little background in not selecting the art, but helping people place art. And then, of course, working with the gallery that supplied all this amazing art, and then being able to pick through what we could use and where it could go, and having to figure out. And this is a great apartment for art, because a lot of newer apartments, I'm sure you guys know, with people who do collect, they're like all the windows, like there's no place to put art. And that definitely is a drawback for collectors. Though I'm sure that's a small niche in the market, but people at this level usually collect. So here we had the opportunity to house art in every space, even upstairs. So we're very lucky to have that. But again, being able to choose, from some of this art, like Louise Nevelson's and some of these amazing pieces, as well as some of more unknown people, for me that was a real treat.
Well,
Thanks.
I'm glad that thank you, Joan. I'm glad that you brought up the topic of art, because as we know, the cost of art in many cases exceeds the value of some of these properties, and that you need a property that is worthy to house these works of art. So I'm going to get to the questions.
Thank you.
First one, thank you. Are you seeing a trend of buyers wanting to purchase homes fully furnished? Does this differ for different segments of the market? Examples, would a pied-à-terre buyer be more interested in purchasing a fully furnished residence? So I just want to make one comment on behalf of one of our properties that Mark is overseeing, and that's the Mandarin Oriental Residences at Fifth Avenue, which is absolutely selling turnkey with everything. All you need is your toothbrush and
how's that going?
And your clothing.
Yeah.
Very well, I hear.
So that is one property that has found its niche in the market. But Frederick, let's talk about buyers and fully furnished.
Yeah, it's all the rage in Miami, of course, but it is, you brought up a good point, it's price point related. So like anything under 5, you know, at Shell Bay, which Norma, Jean, and I are also selling for Witkoff, which is doing incredibly well. I just got a text message today that the third and last penthouse is sold, and I think we did 50 or 60 million last week alone. It's been absolutely mayhem down there, but we have this furniture package, and to your point, every single buyer so far, right, NJ, has purchased the furniture package because every single one, we were all surprised by it. And yeah, I think we talked about that COVID, and Tracy mentioned the escalated cost with everything and timing. People just got burned and over it. They want, and if it's offered and it's beautiful and, you know, it's picked for them and it's a reasonable price, why not?
We tell clients sometimes, if you could find something that's ready to, and I, again, sometimes talk myself out of a job, but if you could find something that's even 75% of what you think you want, get it. Because, you know, for what you might think you're forfeiting to get the time and the money and the things we talked about earlier, particularly if it's a second or third home, and people have gone along with it. I've said myself to my husband, like, if we ever sold our house in East Hampton, we have a beautiful oceanfront house. I was like, I'm buying a furnished condo. Like, I'm not doing anything. You know?
Well, we have a couple furnished here.
Yeah.
How much was the furniture here?
Well, I think they were negotiating the price of the whole.
But what,
place as
like
turnkey.
retail? Am I allowed to?
I don't know.
I'm asking you.
I don't even know.
Oh,
because
okay.
no,
It's a lot. I know it's a lot. It's really beautiful
The reason why I'm
stuff.
saying that is all
And
of
you
this stuff
picked up-
they didn't give us. We didn't have to go by pricing. It was what was, you know, what we could choose. So
I'm just letting agents know that they can have all of this at the right price.
yes.
So another question from the audience is, have you found that having a dedicated home office is important for most buyers?
Yeah. Does anybody else want to take it?
Tracy, would you like to?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm sitting in one right now. I think it's important for buyers at every level, even in the under $5 million market. Since COVID, it's just shifted, and no matter how much, you know, for us in our business, we're in the field than we are in our office if we're doing any kind of business. But I think for buyers now, it's an absolute must. And it's not as traditional anymore as it once was, like a big formal library. And it might be different on the East Coast, but I know certainly in California and in Texas, rooms are being converted. So like in my house, for example, I took a room that had some built-ins and stuff. And I was like, well, this is the perfect office because it has a bar. But, you know, I think kind of creating spaces that are a little bit more interesting and multi-purpose versus formal living room, formal office library, separate bar. I think spaces that flow. I've found that we've used this office for everything from meetings to obviously working to cocktail hour, you know, and because of that, I think more buyers particularly are looking for that, not just the typical formal office.
Thank you. This next question is perfect for all three of you because you're all often in the press. For a home, something like this, or something of this caliber, that you want to maximize press for, how does the approach to furniture and art change? How do you make something new and exciting to get the press to come to it so that it's press-worthy? And I guess this is from agents who might have listings that are getting a little tired and asking, are there any pieces of advice and things that you can do to reinvigorate a space, whether it's changing the artwork or making a new story?
Use a top designer.
Use a top designer. Joan Am. That's a great answer.
To get press.
I think
Not
for
your
our
press-
buildings,
press
generally, if we dissect certain elements of a building, or, you know, for example, amenities and things like that, if we dissect them into pieces and find newsworthy moments for each piece of it, that often works. So for example, if you're coming into, I don't know, summertime in and outdoor spaces, outdoor terraces are, the thing that everybody's going to be focusing on, then perhaps featuring your outdoor space, featuring maybe a designer coming in and outfitting it, and how that's going to serve you during the time that you're going to use it. Coming from a new development standpoint, I think dissecting the pieces that make the whole give us press moments.
To be clear, I don't think that press sells property. Press is great. Press is great for the developer. Press is great for the agent. Press is great for the company. But for a buyer, particularly in the luxury market, more often than not, I mean, you guys said it, most of the stuff that you've sold at the highest price per foot is trading before it even comes to market. It's not even listed. There is no press on it yet.
I 100% agree with that.
It's the quieter stuff that even now, I mean, there was a period in the market a few years ago where it was like you brought everything to the market. You didn't sell anything quietly because you brought it to market because it produced multiple offers faster and more efficiently. And now I'm seeing a very different trend. If you have something that's special, whether it's architecture or, a really great interior designer attached to it, or something just really incredibly special, you're better off not to bring it to market. You're better off not to get press on it. And you're better off to find that buyer that's willing to pay the premium to have that sort of private sale.
Right, like the whisper campaigns that we usually commence our soft launches in new development to really, because as you said, a lot of it is friends buying with friends, and it's a lot referral based. And look at pocket listings and off market, those tend to get more traction, right? People want what they can't have.
It's like dating. I mean, I've been not dating for a long time, but like if you're too desperate and takes too many times, people are gonna, you gotta hold it back a little bit, the energy. So I agree. I mean, some press can be good, but most of the time, maybe better not to.
Well, I think we're coming into the close of our design discussion today, and we do have a couple of more minutes if anyone has anything that they'd like to share. Where's the sales team here for this property? Fran, Katzen, Sherry, why don't you just say a couple of words about what's still available and why our agents who have not yet visited, even if you're going to visit via Zoom, we all know, we learned through COVID, we're experts at selling, even overseas. So Fran and Sherry?
Well, first of all, as you can see, the building is absolutely stunning. And as Susan mentioned, it's solid as a rock. So we have been here for over 2 years, and it's really been a pleasure walking in here every day for work. But they make us go home. But the rooms in this building are spectacular and large. I think in a lot of other new developments, we found that bedrooms tend to be small, closet space tends to be limited. And here, the floor plates are really very gracious, and we're making deals. We have very happy residents. It's a lovely building, and 4% to you. So please come call us. We're always happy to preview, to make appointments for your customers, and do whatever it takes to make a happy customer for you and a deal for us and you, of course.
Thank you.
And Brian, you want to say anything? Has nothing to say. Okay.
So I'll just say, and there's a critically acclaimed 53 restaurant, and we are really just a stone's throw away from Rockefeller Center. The Christmas tree is going to be lit on November 29th, so anyone who doesn't live in town and who's coming into town, please stop here on your way to the tree or after the tree, because we're right here. So thank you all today.
Thank you.
Joe, Frederick, Tracy, Norma Jean. It's been fun.
Thank you.
And again, thank you to Samantha and Olivia of Pontiac Land Group for hosting us this afternoon, and the whole team. So thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys.